Hey, what's up, everybody? Anthony Morrison here, and welcome to another one of our client spotlight videos. Look, what we really want to do here at WebinarFuel is tell you about some of the clients and some of the people that are using WebinarFuel, what their businesses are, and then, of course, how WebinarFuel is helping their business and helping it grow. I think it's really important that we don't just keep the spotlight on, all the features and the benefits and all of these things that we bring to you with WebinarFuel. I think it's really important to see how, people are using this, how different businesses are being transformed, how people are going from, the inability to be successful with paid ads to the ability to be successful with paid ads, how they're increasing conversions and all of those things. So super excited to have you joining us here. And today on this episode, we are talking with Damien Watts. Damien, how are you?
Oh man, I'm good. Pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, listen, man. So I reached out to you. We obviously look at everyone that's using WebinarFuel, and we're ranking how many people have made X amount of dollars and this amount. We reach out to them to find out, hey, what are you doing? Let's inspire people. Let's show people how this works. What's interesting about you is a lot of your sales aren't actually tracked in WebinarFuel because you're using book a call funnels and things like that. So you've actually done way more than what we see in the platform. How much, if you don't mind sharing, how much revenue have you guys generated through WebinarFuel now?
Yeah, I looked at the stats last night. It was right around 4.5 million.
$1.5 million through WebinarFuel. 4.5 million?
4.5.
You've generated 4.5 through WebinarFuel.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. That's way more. When we talked before we did this interview, I was expecting like 600,000. So.
Yeah, no, I went and looked at the stats last night, and then, I was looking at the book of call funnels and things of that nature. Yeah, it's well over 1 million for sure.
Wow. Okay. So just to be clear, it's like 4.5 million.
4.5.
Wow. Okay. So look, let's tell everybody a little bit about your business, because you run an agency, right? But what you've done is you've basically gotten your clients to start using WebinarFuel instead of the other alternatives that they were using in the past. So tell us a little bit about, what your clients, like what the funnels are that your clients are using, and then we'll kind of go from there. Tell me first, like a little bit about the clients that are using this through your agency.
Okay. Yeah. So for us, a huge majority of our clients right now that are using WebinarFuel, because we still have a couple that bounce between Stealth Webinar and Webinar Jam. Won't be for long after we start explaining some of the results that we've been able to generate. But for us, it's legitimately book a call funnels, webinar funnels. The really good thing about what we do and how we're able to utilize WebinarFuel to its maximum capabilities is split testing webinars, long form versus short form, hour plus 30 minutes, right? And it's really telling whenever you look at the data of how sophisticated these end users and prospects have become, right? So at the end of the day, people are, they're used to they know that a sale's coming. Whenever they hop onto the webinars, they're more sophisticated when it comes to the overall game, right? When it comes to the webinars. So for us, shortening them down has been game changing for us. Post-COVID, it's 2021. Things are just getting, again, just a little bit more defined on our end when it comes to dialing in, looking at the show up rates, the view times, just the analytics behind WebinarFuel alone give us what we need on our end to, make adjustments and optimization. But to answer your question, the majority of those people book a call, webinar, high ticket.
Right. And so for those of you that are watching and maybe don't understand what book a call is, it's where, you send people through your webinar funnel, but you don't actually sell them on the webinar. You sell them on booking a phone call and then talking with your sales team. And so one of the ways to make a book a call funnel actually, successful is to get people through the webinar, right? If you have, we see a lot of people that run these through VSLs instead of through the actual webinar. And when the person hits the page, the button and everything is already there to book calls. And so you get a lot of unqualified calls. You get people who get on the phone that have no clue why they're really even there. But when you run it through a webinar, especially obviously with WebinarFuel, the whole idea is to take them through to the end of that webinar, get them, really educated and have them really understand why they're booking this call, right? And then obviously showing them the CTA. You said something that was interesting to me. You said the ability to split test. So I'm guessing that you guys are using our split testing feature where you can load multiple videos into one webinar, push all the traffic and see the results. Has that been for you? And this is always interesting to me as somebody that kind of like the architect behind this kind of came out of my head. And it was what I felt like I would need, or needed in my webinar business. But then seeing other people use it and how they use it and how it's helping them. Would you say that split testing the webinars in WebinarFuel is significantly easier than split testing it in the other platforms that your clients have been using?
Yeah, because it's all in one dashboard.
Yeah,
all
you
under
don't
one.
have to clone it.
Yeah, all you have to do is go in and clone it. And I believe, that one feature alone is the reason behind the 4.5 million, right? Just because, again, it gives us the ability, it's super quick. So it's not a lot of adjustments that we have to do, duplicating, cloning and doing all this, and it's a different traffic sources. I think that with what you have created, again, standalone, it is definitely responsible for over 95% of that revenue that's been generated. Because again, for us, split testing is just a part of the game, right? Split test copy, ads, funnels, the whole shebang, but not really split testing webinars. This is something that's a little newer for us. We've been doing it for, I'll say about 1.5 years now, but since we've gotten into WebinarFuel, it's made it so much easier. But looking at that data, we're then able to say, okay, this 30-minute webinar is absolutely crushing it for us. So people are consuming all 30 minutes. How can we make it better? Boom, go and create another variation, change this out, take this out, boom. Now we have four webinars going at the same time, and just to see which one can outcompete the other. Yeah.
And that's really the name of the game. That's the reason why when we built WebinarFuel, we put so much effort into your ability to really optimize the webinar, because the other platforms, and this is where I was kind of coming from with mine, was like you said, you'll split test copy and you'll split test maybe your landing page, but you just don't split test the actual webinar because it's a nightmare. You have to clone the whole thing, all the emails, all the follow-up sequences. Whereas in here, you just load another video and it just rock and rolls. Have you guys used by chance any of the automation features in WebinarFuel? Are you using any of those, or have those not have you not even really kind of dabbled in that yet?
As of right now, we just utilize the basic integrations as far as connecting it to the CRMs and things of that nature. But as far as the automations, we haven't even dabbled into it because it's so much stuff that comes along with the software. Again, we're quick turnaround, so we just try to focus on the rev. So we will definitely be focusing on the automations and utilizing the software to its full.
Yeah, there's definitely some opportunities to even get bigger lifts. One of the things I tell everyone when I talk to them about WebinarFuel, it's always that, look, you can't, it's rare that you can pick like one lever and pull that one lever and your whole business changes and everything explodes and you go from 0 to 100 and all that. Usually it's a series of small levers, right? You pull this little lever over here, you tweak your copy. Then you pull this little lever over here and you have a better email sequence. And you pull this lever and you pull 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 of these levers. And then all of a sudden, now combined, you've got this massive lift in results, right? And so we built a lot of those little levers into WebinarFuel, right, where you can pull quite a few. And so I think the probably the biggest lever that you can pull is the delivery of the webinar. So tell me this: you guys are inside of WebinarFuel, you can choose if you want to let people watch your webinar on a web browser, just like the standard ones, or if you want to force them to download the software and then watch it back in software, which is similar to how I'm interviewing you now here in Zoom. So just out of curiosity, which one are you using for your clients?
Now we're allowing them to download the software.
So you're pushing them through the software. So see and this is what's so important for people that are watching this interview and they're running a business and they're thinking about whether it's changing to WebinarFuel or just using their WebinarFuel account, right? A lot of people have it and it takes them a long time before they can really buy into this fact. And the fact is, and we see it time and time again in the data, that when someone downloads that app and attends the webinar in the app, they stay longer and they stay more focused, right? So what I experienced, and I want to ask you if you see the same thing in your data. So when you look at one of my webinars on other popular platforms, right? Usually what it looks like is this. When I look at my attendance log, I see a spike at the beginning when the webinar starts. And then within like the first 5 minutes, it's look does this, goes straight down like 22% within 5 minutes. And then it kind of levels off and it starts just dipping consistently throughout the whole entire webinar. With WebinarFuel, what I actually see is a spike. I don't see a big dip in 5 minutes. I see a consistent drop off of a couple of percentage points every 5-10 minutes, where what's happening is the people that join the webinar wanted to join the webinar. So they don't get on and then just get right off in 5 minutes. And what that means is I keep their attention. And by keeping their attention, obviously I'm able to sell them. Are you seeing the same type of data with your clients? Because you have the unique experience. Like most of the people we interview, they're running one funnel and it's just their business and they see their stats. But you have stats from multiple clients that you have that are using WebinarFuel. So you can give some insight into how it looks on a broader scale.
Yeah, I think that we've seen similar because we have used the web app, once you guys kind of introduced that. For us on our end, it was just all about, obviously the biggest thing with the webinar space is show up rate. How do you get people to show up, number one? And number two is how do you get them to stay on? So for us, very, very similar. Inside of Webinar Jam and the other platforms, we typically see that dip, right? But again, with the traditional webinars, evergreen style, like, for example, I saw Kevin David's the other day, right? As soon as it starts, it's like a promo intro. It's not live. And again, with the sophisticated buyers now, I think that being able to jump in and, again, split test the webinars, the beginning, the middle, the end, I think that it gives us the opportunity to optimize accordingly when it comes to keeping people on that first 15 minutes. Because again, if you can hook them and keep them in that first 15 minutes, typically they stick around. And then once we shortened it to 30, split testing the shorter webinars, they typically stick around for 30 minutes.
Right. Yeah, no, it makes total sense. And one of the things that I think is super important is just intent, right? We see this a lot in these book a call funnels, right? Again, if somebody's intent, if you tell them, hey, book this phone call for this free gift, and they get on with the intent of, I booked this call to get this free gift, you'll see just barely any sales. If you say book this call because you are interested in buying X or doing X, Y, or Z and having our help, well, then people will get on the call. It might be less people, right? They're going to book the call, but much higher quality. Mm-hmm. And what I see with a lot of book a call funnels is I see people doing, and I know you guys do it, and we've done it, surveys after people watch the video. And this is, again, if they're not doing a webinar, they do survey. And what they're really trying to do is qualify people. They're really what we're trying to do there is get rid of the people that have no intention of getting on this call for the right reason, right? And so we want to focus on those that do or are there for the right reason. What I've always found interesting is that with webinars, we don't do the same thing. With webinars, we just try to just force everybody into it instead of creating intent. And when I get onto a live event, my intention is to focus on that live event. When I click on a link in an email and I just hit a web page with a video, I have zero intent when I get there of actually watching this. So hopefully the first 5 seconds will hook me, but more than likely I'm going to bounce. And I think that's what really the psychological play that we have with downloading the software and then creating that intent from users where they have to download the software and then load that software just like Zoom or any other platform. I think that's what gets them on these webinars with the right intention of, hey, I'm on this webinar. I'm here for a reason. I'm going to be focused on it, right? And I think that's what's led to a lot of the success that our clients are having is people are getting on with the intention of being on a webinar. And even though your show rates might be 10, 12% lower than what you see in these other platforms, you can't even compare the quality of the people that are getting on and the intention of those people. And I think you're basically seeing the same results across multiple businesses now.
Yeah. So for us, with being in all these different verticals, it really gives us the opportunity. Most people tell you to niche down and do all these different things. And we said, screw it. So we went very, very broad when it comes to verticals. So any and everybody you can think of when it comes to a niche, we probably tested it out and ran some ads for it, or still do. So for us, looking at when people come into this funnel, right, this book call funnel, we kind of revitalize it a little bit. So, people get an offer before they actually get to the case study video and things of that nature. But then, like you mentioned, that qualification step. So we send them to the type forms, job forms, whatever form that we're using to qualify these people. That's been a really big game changer as well for us, just because if someone says, we typically use income and what they're able to spend on their investment to invest in themselves. We use that as the qualifying question most of the time. Right. So for that, if they don't take it, they'll go to a course, right? If they say less than 20,000, right, we'll take them to the actual course. Here, go do it yourself, right? Mm-hmm. But if they do, then again, they get the opportunity to book a call. And that one step just lets us know, okay, here are our pain points that we have to make sure that we attack on this call, because again, they booked it, they let us know. So what is that pain point? So once you're on the call and you're going through that sequence of trying to close, it makes it easy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's all about qualification and intent, and that's really what we're doing with WebinarFuel is qualifying and creating intent. And I think and it works with any funnel. Obviously, you do a lot of book call funnels, but this works with just straight selling on your webinar. You're creating the intent in their minds when they get on to be there for that event. And the only way, this is the funny thing to me, is the only way you can sell somebody on a webinar is if they actually focus and pay attention to the webinar, right? Like, you cannot sell me the best product in the world, even if I'm on this webinar, if I close it down in 15 seconds or 30 seconds or 6 minutes, or if the video starts buffering and all of these things. And so the environment that you're selling in matters, right? Because that environment is what's going to induce my attention. And that's why in live events, when you go into big rooms and live events, they don't leave the doors open. They keep it quiet. There's no distractions. They tell people to put their phones down. You can't have your computers open because they want you to focus, right? And I think we tried to create that focus, that ability to capture attention and create focus within WebinarFuel, and it sounds like it's paying off for you. So just to wrap things up, because I know we've been going now for like 15 minutes. Question for you is, two questions. Number one is, what is the number one feature that WebinarFuel has that other platforms do not have that has helped you succeed at a higher level? And the second question would be, would you suggest that anybody that watches our interview has an offer, try out WebinarFuel? Absolutely. So to answer your first question, I think that we've spent the majority of this time talking on this particular feature, split testing. Like, again, being able to do that at ease gives us the ability to quickly pivot and do things that we need to do to optimize the businesses. So to answer your question there, split testing is the number one feature that gives us the ability to optimize and make our clients more money. The second thing is absolutely, it's very similar to what we use with Hyros, right? We're making it mandatory. If you have a webinar, if you're doing advertising, you're using Hyros, right? There's other platforms out there, but for us, for the info product space, e-commerce business is not so much. We use some other platforms, but for the info product, it's mandatory Hyros, right? So now what's happening is, for webinars, it's going to be mandatory WebinarFuel. It's legitimately in the contract. Awesome, man. Awesome. It's in the contract. I like that. It's in the contract. Well, listen, first of all, congrats on $4.5 million through WebinarFuel. Thank you. That is awesome. And obviously, for those of you that watch this, if you need some help with media buying, I mean, look, we don't do that, but we want you to crush it. We want you to make money. We want you to make sales. Damien and his team, they bought media for me. They're buying media for other people. Obviously done $4.5 million through our platform. So make sure to check him out. I'll put a link below this video so you can check out his company, his business. And if they can help you with your media buying, well then, hey, then we're all winning, right? Because we've got clients that are making money, and then of course we've got clients making money. So that's the exciting thing. Everybody wins. So look, man, I want to thank you for hanging out with me here for 15 minutes, for telling us a little bit about your story, your business, and kind of your journey as you've started using WebinarFuel. And I hope you have massive success, man. Look, thanks for having me, man. And kudos to the software, man. Good luck on building this monster, because it's coming. Appreciate it.